Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. We've got, is it Nasty Nate? Is that what they call you?
Yeah. I'm getting a little older. I think I'm going to switch that
up. Recently married. He's a father now. He rides around on his motorcycle crazy. He's a stock trader. He's a pocket. He's got so many things. We don't even know what he's doing. But dude, I wanted to bring you on. And what I like to do with my guests is kind of, they tell their story and we'll kind of see where it goes from there.
Cool, man. So the pandemic, I probably should just start there because I feel like that's where my life like completely did like a 180. Had a lot of ups and downs in my life. And I think one thing that really kind of kept me grounded was the bike. And that's why, I'm married to that game, because when I was younger, I just felt like I didn't fit in anywhere. And I think that's a big need that we all have, is to be seen and to feel at home in some place. And, everything that I pursued as a young guy, it was always sports, baseball, basketball. I feel like, my parents kind of pushed me to do the regular, ball sport kind of thing, go to college, all these things. Not that that's bad, but, that was like, I feel like they were kind of living through me. And, I just always, as I got older, I had this urge and I was like, man, I'm not cut out for this. Like, I'm naturally gifted. So I think when you have a little success, you're like, oh, maybe I could see myself doing this. And, I actually got a baseball scholarship to a junior college. They're going to pay for my schooling, all that. And a week before I was supposed to go, I was like, I can't go. Like I told my parents, like, this isn't what I love. Like, I don't see myself doing this. And I feel like that was like my first attempt at me truly trying to be myself. And there was a lot of backlash from my parents. So that was really hard for me because they thought I was throwing my life away because I didn't have a plan. And at that time I was really into lifting weights and I was like, I'm going to be a bodybuilder. Like that's what I want to do. That's what my dad looked at me and he said, you better get a fucking job. And I was like, oh, damn, that killed me. I was like, wow, like they don't see what I see, 6 months later, I was working at a car dealership and we would drive to get gas and put gas in the cars. And there was a guy that worked at the gas station. He had a motorcycle. And I was like, man, that thing's cool, bro. And he was like, I'll sell it to you. And came up with the money 2 days later. And it was like nothing I'd ever done in my life. I mean, I started on dirt bikes when I was little, but getting on the street was like a completely different game. Like it was the first thing, and I tell people this all the time, this is why I love what I do, is that it was the first thing in my entire life that I'd done that I was fully present in that moment. Like I wasn't thinking about anything else other than the bike, the tires touching the ground, the vibration in the handlebars. Like there's a sense of freedom that is unexplainable when you're on a motorcycle. And then, naturally, I've always been competitive. I always wanted to take everything to the next level. And then I saw people picking the front wheel off the ground. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? Started looking into that. And that was it, man. As soon as I got my first taste of it, I threw my life into it. I mean, I mean that in every sense that I could. I mean, I didn't work as much as I should because I rode. I dumped money I didn't have into the bike. And I, spent time that I could have been doing other things. I could have been, working on my future, or I could have been partying, or I could have been hanging out with friends. I was on the bike. So the bike has helped me become the man that I am today. And I'm proud to say that because it saved me from a lot of downs, because I felt like no matter what I felt like, I could turn to the bike and the bike was there for me. Like it has its own aura. Like it's its own entity. It has it's not obviously like a person, but it's a thing to me, it talks to me. It's there for me. And it's crazy, man. I mean, I really stopped like I thought about committing suicide at one point in my life, and the bike, like throwing, I was like, you know what? Like all the goals that you have, if you're not here, they'll never get met. So why don't you at least try? And so I threw everything I had into this bike. And like I said, it's got me into where I'm at now. It's got me into personal development, because a lot of people just think, I'm naturally gifted, which, it's to some extent I am, but at the same time, everything that I've ever done on this bike, I worked for it. And people didn't see the days when I rode alone, because I can't record myself when I'm by myself. And the times that I rode in the rain, and times that I rode when there was snow on the ground. And again, all the crashes and stuff that I don't post. And if it wasn't for me digging deep and trying to find out who I am as a person, and how much is too much, or are you going to quit, Nate, because this is costing you too much money, or, you've broken bones, or, I got in a major accident. That was a big pivotal moment in my life as well. And I never thought about quitting. And I think I was like, I didn't generate a lot of money from this bike, but I was like, this is the kind of stuff that people need to hear about. Like, what does it take and I think it's even better, to be honest, because I think a lot of people are result driven. So when is enough, or when do you quit? When you're literally physically getting thrown on the ground and you're not getting anything out of it. So it's a vision only you can see, right? And imagine the drive that people could have if they knew those things that I went through, and they could use those same tools to further whatever they want and actually seek results. I mean, the results that I seek mean nothing to anybody but myself. So imagine if I can impact people with that, then there is a sense of result that I can see, So that's kind of what pushed me into self-development. And then, trading, actually, same kind of thing. I mean, it came along where I was friends with some guys that were doing it. And I think the biggest thing now that I have a child is my time. And these guys are making thousands of dollars a day on their phone and never having to go anywhere and never having to clock in. And it inspired me to, do the same. And then, I'm able to do my self-development stuff without getting paid for it yet. I'm able to ride my bike without generating income from it and have no worries and no stress. Because at the end of the day, my family is now number one priority to me. And if I don't, I want them to live well, and I want to live well, and I got to have, some sort of bag to do so.
Mm-hmm. And I think regardless of where anybody's coming from, or if it's the bike, or it's real estate, or it's trading, or it's baseball, or it's whatever, like what I tell everybody is that you have to do something that's for you. Yep. And you alone, regardless if you're getting paid for it or not, because the way it makes you feel in other aspects of your life. And I don't think one of the things I've been doing with my clients a lot is I make them tell me what they really loved when they were in middle school and high school. Mm-hmm. Like, I think as like a 35-year-old up, like, we forget that there's like a life that we're supposed to be leading opposed to that. Right. And it's your statement with your dad saying, get a job, like there's abrasiveness behind it, but there's also pure love if you're standing far back enough to see it. Yep. In that moment, you don't see it at all, right? Yeah, but in that moment, he's worried about your safety, and you're thinking like, screw you, I'm going to go do what I want to go do. That's for me. And I went through the same thing with my dad. My dad was a doctor, and I'm not going to medical school. Like, screw that. Yeah. So
he's like, what?
but it takes a while. It takes some growing up to realize that it comes from a place of love. And it's more compassionate. Yeah. So how does one, in a world we live in where everything is copied and everybody's talking crap on Instagram and, fronting and all that stuff, like, how does one find something that's just for themselves, and how do they live in that and not let the external forces like mess with them?
Man, that's a loaded question. I have actually been trying to construct like a keynote on that. Basically, I call it like outer direction versus inner direction. So the problem with the internet, and it is a problem, is we're not mentally ready for what the internet brings. And I'm fully aware of what it does psychologically. I've done so much research on it, and you can't argue with me about it, because we're not ready for it. The fact that we can constantly be validating ourselves every 15 seconds or every 5 seconds or every even 1 second, if you want to refresh and refresh and refresh, that is not mentally healthy. And not only are you validating yourself, but you're seeking validation from somebody else. So I feel like that's where our everyday just mental confusion comes from, is we live in an external world. So we are so out of touch with ourselves that how do you know what you truly want for yourself? Because we live in a world now where if it's not on the gram, it doesn't count. And, and we started seeing that in stunt riding. People would post photos and then it would be video or it doesn't count. And it's like, and then people start to forget, like, what are they truly riding for? And I'm a big advocate with that too. Or, what are you truly doing what you do for? I won't use riding as every example, but why do you do what you do? And if you don't know why you do it, then you're lost. So I feel like the best thing people can do, really, honestly, I think, is to shut the internet off. Like, I know for myself, like, I'll go sometimes through my day. I mean, I'm victim to it too. I think the algorithm is meant to play you. And when you understand that, you have the power. But if you really don't, there's one thing I think what a lot of people do is they'll get on, like myself. I do this all the time, and take full accountability. Oh, I'm working on here. I'm checking to see, these kind of things. But next thing you know, it's been 20 minutes, So, having that sense of self-control is really important, because I notice that the longer I'm on it, the more I feel out of touch with myself. Like, what is my main purpose in life? It's to provide and help people with whatever they feel like is stopping them to get to where they want to be. At the end of the day, I could care less about social media. It's a great tool to help grow your influence. But how do we do that? We have to get more in touch with ourselves. And what does that look like? That looks like sitting alone. I mean, I think a lot of things that people do is they can't sit with their thoughts, so they distract themselves. For me, I did that for a long time, where I would work. So instead of sitting with myself, I would schedule myself. Like, I did this thing when I was like 21, where I worked 60 days in a row. I had 2 jobs. I worked 60 days in a row, making minimum wage, and then working at a bar. And then one day worked 21 hours in a day, and then got up an hour later and went to work again. And it was like a trophy to me. And I was like, I look back on it now, I was like, dude, you were killing yourself because you couldn't deal with the person that you were in at that time in my life. I couldn't deal with, I was lying, I was deceiving women, I was seeing, I like was hurting people and using them, and I couldn't sit with myself. And I look back now and I'm like, sure, I wanted to grind, but it was a pride thing, and I was like, why am I doing this? Because I can't sit with myself. I don't know who I truly am. I don't know what I truly offer to the world. And when I do think about it, I'm disgusted. So to answer your question, I know that was long-winded, but sitting with yourself and finding out who you truly are away from the internet. Because I always bring the internet up, and people say the internet's not a big deal, but it is a big deal right now. It is millions and millions and millions of people every day are played by the algorithm because they get paid based upon how long you're on that thing. So they know. Have you ever seen the documentary? What is it called? It's about social media.
Social Dilemma?
Yeah. So that thing blew my mind, right? But it's so true. And I think that we're just out of touch with ourselves because we're so worried about likes and comments. And it's, what was the word that I used? It's validation all the time. But how do you validate yourself? Do you validate yourself by serving others? Do you validate yourself by, the work that you do? Maybe it is something that only it's for yourself. Like, I would say for me with the bike, like, the feeling that I get is for myself, but then I realize that I inspire other people as well. But the validation that I seek is me setting a goal and accomplishing it. So finding your own validation and finding out what and why you truly do what you do. Because if you're only doing it for the internet, which is, I feel like what's happened right now, we're out of touch with ourselves. And that's where I feel like a lot of mental issues come from and stem from.
Yeah. And I think ultimately, like, it's, I have a friend who coaches men, and he said something to me when I visited him a while back in San Clemente. He said that for 3 weeks, he purposely didn't work out because he wanted to see what he would say to himself. And he would stare at himself in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to make sure that him going to the gym every morning was for him and not for Instagram.
Wow. That's big. That's big.
And I was like, wow, dude, that is some deep. And he would stare at himself naked in the mirror, and he would talk to himself. Mm-hmm. And he would, that negative side of himself, he would say, no. It's okay. Because he had a scar from when he was a bouncer, and he like hated it. And I'm about to freak you out, bro. He started talking very nice to himself, and he started meditating on it, and the scar went away, bro.
Oh, I believe it. Dude, you're not going to surprise me with anything. I know a lot of people will be surprised by stuff like that, but the people really don't understand like what the mind does. Like it's unbelievable. I mean, that's why I listen to a YouTube video every morning, Earl Nightingale, and we become what we think about. And then he says that only, everyone is self-made, but only the successful will admit it. Which is like, boom, right? I mean, everybody is self-made. All those things, like you said, are just mind-blowing. And to give like context of what we're really capable of, I mean, it's unbelievable, bro. And I love those types of stories. I'm totally with that. I love it. I love it. I mean, I've had similar stories, like not physically like that, where I'm like, dude, this is exactly what I pictured. Like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. One of the helmets that I used to wear was an Icon Motorsports helmet. And I had a buddy that was a mechanic there, and they make helmet jackets, whatever. They do their own bike builds. And that's why he was a mechanic there. It's actually here in Portland, Oregon, where I'm from. And I was a videographer, and I was like, I want to work there one day. And my friend was like, well, how are you going to do that? I was like, I don't know, bro, but I've seen it. Like, I've had dreams where I'm in the building, because I've been in the building before. And I think that's huge, is actually seeing and feeling what you want. And, man, I had some opportunities pop up, and like 3 years later, I got an internship there, and it was just unbelievable. It's like, I don't even take it as like a huge deal, but I take it differently than other people think I would. I accomplished like a big goal, and it was like, but that wasn't the end. That was literally the beginning of what else can I do? Like, what else can I envision? And what else can I make come to life? Because that was just a stepping stone in my video career, and help me with create relationships with the bike. But I mean, just to have that happen, I mean, this is like the mecca of today's age, like helmets, like for stunt riders at least, and for, the younger generation. And I'm like, I'm working here. Like, I pictured this, I envisioned this, I created this scenario, like, and I've envisioned it all the time. And next thing I know, I'm moving my computer into this building. I mean, crazy.
And the second part of that, and I've had to, a buddy really told me this one day. He said, be careful that everything that that you wish for 6 months ago, you aren't currently living and don't realize.
Yes. I love that. That's great.
And so I stopped in my tracks, because I was like, wait, I wanted to do a podcast. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be traveling around helping entrepreneurs and Airbnb, and I'm doing it, and I'm sitting here complaining everything that you wanted, right? And it's like,
you're busy. I'm busy, right?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because I was going to mention that earlier. The number one thing that I want to stricken from the American language is I'm busy. How are you? I'm busy. Dude, it's bullshit. Everybody's busy. We get it.
Yeah,
let's talk a little more. How are you really? Like, how are you really? Like, are you okay? Let's have a real conversation. Let's not have this surface stuff. Because I think, especially in this time and age, like with social media and everything, we really need to check in on people. Like, are you really okay? Right? Yeah, because 100%. 90% of my clients, if you looked at them on the surface on social media, you'd say they're crushing it, and their whole life's falling apart underneath it. You know? And it's like, we really have to take a minute, pause, and say, one of my favorite lines, my coach, he says that most people live their life like this.
Yep.
He said they take.
You see the cover.
He said, he said, pull it back, breathe for 2 seconds, and really talk to people and say like, hey, especially in the space that I play in most of the time, which is recovery, and you could be sober for 6 years and then something happened or your girl leaves you. Like you have to and when you feel compelled to reach out to somebody, like just 100%. Don't assume that they are good. Like we really need to become this more compassion, humanity stuff. It is really something I'm pressing for.
100%. I agree. And it's crazy that you say that about the things that we talk about. Because actually, all this, like I always was such a physical person. Like I would get whatever I want. I'm going to get it from the work, right? I'm not going to get it from, I didn't even realize that I was kind of manifesting these things. And my girl really put me on to like the law of attraction and The Secret. Like there was things I was doing that I realized, before younger, I was like, wow, like I did envision that and I did manifest that, but she really put me onto it. And one thing that I still do to this day is I have a higher standard for myself in my income. And so what I'll do in the meantime is I'll say that I'm broke. And my girl's like, do you want that? Like, why use that word? Well, because my standard is high. So every day I'm like, I got to do this. I'm broke, but I'm not. And she's like, be careful what you say, because don't think that if you really think that every day, and this is something that she put me onto too, is people would pay for your life. So how are you broke? Mm-hmm. Like she did this to me when we first met, when I was a very negative person in a super dark place, and the bike was my life, more important than her. And I told her that, and she said, what would you pay for your right arm so you could twist the throttle? I said, everything I have. What would you pay for your left arm so you could pull the clutch in? Everything I have. What would you pay for both legs so you could jump over the handlebars? Everything I have. Okay, so are you broke? I'm not, right? People would pay. That people don't understand is your biggest downfall. You think someone else is praying for that. And I think gratitude is the fastest way to turn everything around. Is gratitude. So what are you actually thankful for? I mean, there's so many people, I've always had, I don't know why. And I'm, like I said, I'm fully transparent. I've always had big, I would say, mental issues with money. It's never enough. I haven't explored that. I'm not really sure why, but my girl is like, Nate, what about these people that have all this money and they can't find a genuine relationship? They would pay for your life. They would pay for a girl that was there with them when they didn't have a car.
I know a guy that has $280 million that would pay to have your girl, like to have somebody that truly loves him. Yep. And he's a miserable human being.
Yep. And see, and honestly, I wish more people would talk about that kind of stuff, because people don't. Because like you said, I think the internet has become entertainment instead of education. So what really is, we're playing into the surface level of the human mind that is the animalistic part of it, and not the part that it does the cognitive thinking. So like you said, I mean, my girl was with me when I didn't have a car. My girl was with me when I had no money and no job. And she tells me that, like, people would pay for your life. Why do you think you're broke?
It's very interesting. I said it on the podcast earlier today. A lot of men do this. I'm going to grind. I'm going to work my face off. I'm going to provide for us. I'm going to give you everything that you needed. Yeah. And then you turn around and you look at your spouse or your kids and you go, I'm doing this all for you.
For you.
Yep. And their response is, we didn't ask for it.
Oh, that's the worst, bro.
You're doing it for you. Don't act like you aren't.
You're doing it for your ego.
But hear me out. That's okay if you admit it. But what I've noticed a lot of high performers do is they schedule in time with their kids and their wife. So they're not thinking about trying to fit it in, and they don't get what's left over. So you might be working 12 hours a day, but they know at 5:30, I got dad, we're hanging out. And so if everybody's bought into that, and there's, my favorite quote in the entire fucking world is George Bernard Shaw, who was a poet from the 1940s, said, the problem with communication is the illusion that it's taken place.
Oh, dude, dropping bombs, bro. I love that. Wow. No,
it's one sentence that's the most powerful sentence ever, because that's men in a nutshell. True. Yeah.
No, seriously. What do you not understand? Like, don't you see me leave every day and try to bring home everything that what do you not get? What do you not get? Like, I'm doing this for, you're right. You're not. And I think that's what, honestly, honestly, where that comes from as well is that, a large percentage of people are doing something that they're not happy with. Mm-hmm. So imagine the magnification of the resentment, mm-hmm. right? Because not only am I doing this for you and you don't appreciate it, quote unquote, I'm doing something that I hate. The resentment, bro. Right?
It's a shame cycle. So I got one more for you. You ready? This is my favorite one, because this is a shame cycle that everybody's in.
Yep.
You can't beat yourself up for not performing at your best while simultaneously not performing at your best.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do, right?
Straight up.
Like, oh, you should be better. You should bench this, or you should work out 7 days a week, mm-hmm. instead of just saying, hey man, you did it. Like, way to go. And mm-hmm. what we need to understand is the act of doing it, keeping the commitment and being there and being for ourselves. Because here's my biggest issue as I coach people and create goals, is that I think their goals, this is about to get real trippy for you. So mm-hmm. your goals can only be as big as your past self season. Mm-hmm. You're looking at the lens through who you used to be. So instead, if you're present for the moment and open to anything that's possible, then there's no limit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because you're letting the universe say, in this moment, as a father, I'm going to show up in my highest form, and I'm going to be there. And then I'm going to do that at work, and I'm going to do that for my wife. And here's the deal. It's very hard, because one of the things I talk about all the time is, as much as I want all the things, I want none of the things. This is what me and my friends talk about all the time. We're like, dude, we want to build all these businesses. And then on like Tuesday, I'm like, I don't want to build any of these things. I just want to disappear.
Exactly. I think what people, so that too, I think a lot of things that I didn't understand when I first got into wanting to perform higher is that, I kind of made up this thing, like, people want greatness, but they don't understand is that greatness comes with responsibility. And that responsibility can be very large. Like, if I want to be a great father and a great husband, I have a lot of responsibility. Like, I tell people this all the time with, like you said, this is kind of tags along with the, I'm doing this for you. So if I go out and work, 12 hours or whatever that looks like, and I'm doing this for my son, he doesn't care. All he knows is that when I come home, am I there or am I not? Do I come home and I hit the couch and do I fall asleep when, we're having our time? Or am I there with him? Am I playing with him? That's all he cares about. I think there's like a misconception that we have to, and I've seen it. I don't know if Bruce Lee actually said it, but you see it on these memes all the time, is that instead of giving your kids everything you didn't have, teach them everything you didn't know. Because if I give him something, it's the same thing. Teach a man to fish, he eats for one day, right? Give a man a fish, he eats for one day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. If I give him something, he doesn't know anything. There's nothing for him. Then he's not self-sufficient. He's not independent. And that's one thing that I had to learn really hard on my own, is that my parents coddled me and they did a lot of stuff for me. And so the mental stuff that I went through was me stepping into an individual at an age where I thought I should already be independent and self-sufficient, and I wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a mind twister. Yeah.
So how do I teach him all the things? And I firmly believe I live my life in metaphor, and I'm going to teach him, the same way. And I just think that is so important, especially like you said, is that kids don't see that. He doesn't care how long I've been gone. He doesn't, I'm putting, my girl says this all the time when men use that, because we talk about this stuff all the time. I'm putting a roof over your head and the food on your table. That's to be expected. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
That is the bare minimum.
That's
the bare minimum. And when people say that, should you be grateful? Absolutely. But should me as a father, should I say the reason that I'm gone or the reason that I'm not present? And I have to check myself on this. consistently every day. Am I proud of the bare minimum? No, I want to be great. I want to be excellent. I want to take it to the next level. So I can't stay in that. We can't stay in that part that's such a low level accomplishment. I wouldn't even call it an accomplishment. You have to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one of the things is like, okay, let's say my goal is I want to make, $200K a year. Let's just say, like, you haven't even made $70K a year. Mm-hmm. So like, we can't even talk about your goals. So like, what if we got to 100, and then when we got to the 200, then we stand on top of the 200, and then we really make a decision because there's a lot of things that I'm doing, let's just say, for certain reasons that maybe 2 years from now I won't have to do. And then I truly get to make a decision that is basically 100% mine. And I'm already doing that about 70% of the time. But when I get to that 100, that's ultimately, one of my favorite, another quote is, desire is just a contract that you make with yourself. On this amount of time, you're not going to be happy till you get this. Right. Like and so that, it's actually desire that's like holding you back, because the goal, the thing is always going to move when you get it. If you got the next car, the next house, you're going to want the bigger one. It's never going to change.
Yeah. It's destination syndrome.
Yeah. And so what you're actually chasing is the next best version of yourself.
Growth. Yeah. And that actually hit me really hard. A couple of years ago was my biggest financial year of my life, 2018. And I said, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have this. I'm going to have a beautiful girl. I'm going to live in a house with a big garage, yada, 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 3 bikes, all these things. Well, I got the 3 bikes. I got the house with the garage, and then I turn around and the girl's not there. So now because of, I'm like missing all of these things, my mattress is on the floor because, I don't care about those kind of things. Like the house became a place to sleep and not a home. And, no rugs, no kitchen table. I'm eating, standing at the countertop. Like I was so focused on the destination that when I got there, it's not what it's cracked up to be. I have a friend who owns 3 businesses, multimillionaire. And I asked him when I first met him 3 or 4 years ago, I'm like, dude, I see the Bentley, I see this, I see that. He's like, none of that stuff matters. Once you're able to have it, its importance is nothing. When you can't have it is when you want it. But once you're at a certain point, he said, like, if I make $200, $300, $400, $500, $600, $700,000 less a year, I won't even know. But people that don't have it, we count pennies, right? Yeah. So what we're truly chasing, and I actually talked about this early on a live, what we're truly chasing is growth. Like, because once you get to that destination, you get there, you open the door, you're like, ooh, this is going to be the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. And then boom, you're like, now what? And that's why I coined the term that goes along with my brand, that wasn't shit, because that's the attitude. So except for it's in failure and in triumph. So when I do fail and I look back and I'm like, that wasn't shit, I'm not going to let that beat me. Right. And then when I succeed, what we do is we build our goals up in our head sometimes. And we're like, this is so big. This is so unattainable. Why do I think I'm worthy of that? Right. Why do I think I could ever do that? And I know that if I put my effort into whatever I do, I will have it. And I'm like, wow, why did I think that was big? That wasn't shit. Right. Yeah. So that's where that came from. And that's just how I live my life since, I coined the term, like everything that I ever thought was going to break me wasn't shit. And everything that I thought like, this is going to be my, absolute peak. It wasn't shit. And I've done more.
It's never as bad as it seems. It's never as good as it is. It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, there's a guy named, he's my favorite dude to watch right now, just giving nasty amounts of value out. He wrote a book called $100 Million Offers. His name's Alex Hormozy. He makes like 1.6 million a month, a week. Like this dude is a savage, right? He taught like all the guys, right? Book is 99 cents. It's the best book I ever read. His YouTube channel is amazing. And he said, listen, guys, I got 150 mil in the bank. I've done the cars, done the jets. I don't care.
Yeah.
Because it really doesn't matter. He goes, it really doesn't matter. He goes, it's just a game now. He's like, I'm seeing how I can work less, make more money, support my team, grow a bigger team.
Yep.
When you start clipping and you start getting that momentum, you realize that like, hey, it's great. Awesome. Let's go. Like, it's not really, and it's not really like my dad always, you know, and I never realized it till like the last couple of years. Like my dad told me, he's like, dude, when you go from like 250 to like 350, like he was making that a year. Like, he's like, it's not really like you've got everything that you need at that point. It's not really going to do anything over that.
It's not. Exactly.
And it's hard for young people to understand, right? It's hard. You know, what's the first goal they say? I'm gonna be a millionaire. Like, and I'm like, do you understand how much work it takes and like how much dedication and time and sacrifice? So, you know, I love that we're talking about this. If people want to follow your content and they want to see what you got going on, how would they do that?
So I'm at Nasty Nate Jr. on Instagram. I have a Facebook page that's the same as well. I'm not as active on Facebook. And then I'm also on YouTube, Nasty Nate Jr. as well. And then I have a podcast on Apple and Spotify, it's called That Talk. I'm not as active on there. I'm trying to figure out whether I want to keep doing solo dolo or I want to do, doing it with people. I think doing it with people is a lot better, but it's easy for my schedule just to kind of have a thought and kind of knock it out. But yeah, man.
I love it. Guys, if you like this episode, send it out to your friends. Follow Nate, and we'll see you next time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.